world today. And truth be told, as a nation, I am of the opinion that even to date, we haven't really understood what corruption is. And everybody has his own definition. Sometimes the definition we get from the West to, to this part of our country is making it even difficult for us to know what corruption is. And for us to be able to solve a problem, we need to know the root cause. In our series last month, we've talked about the seven sins of our politics. We had opportunity to go through all of them, and all the sins are related to corruption because the seven sins have something to do with corruption. However, today we want to look at corruption, and we are making a very bold statement that all of us, we need a kind of amnesty to chart a new course for us to start all over again. Else, it where we are heading to, it will be difficult to solve it. We all have to come to the point that, in fact, all of us are guilty. In our last episode, I mentioned that sometimes when we mention corruption, people have the mindset that it has to do with the quantum. But we believe that corruption is the act. The act itself. It doesn't matter whether you've stolen or you've taken one CD and somebody has taken 1 million. The act of taking, if it's not the right means, it amounts to corruption. Just that you did not get the opportunity to amass the biggest of the cake, or maybe you have not even gotten the opportunity to get that opportunity to take advantage of the system. So sometimes you are just playing victim kind of. Just you create impression. Oh, these people are corrupt, but just maybe you have not gotten that opportunity. If you were to be in their shoes, if you were to be in the position in which those people are occupying, what will happen? These are the things I am trusting God that by the time we finish this discussion, we'll be able to go to the root cause and then come out with a system that will enable us to start a new slate. We have to have a new chapter and say, all of us, let us forgive ourselves. Let us, as an Africans, as Ghanaians, okay, we've all messed up. Let us have a new clean sheet and let's put a system for us to move on in order to deal with the canker called corruption. So this is just the intro. My brother is there to pick it up from me. Joshua, we are talking about corruption, amnesty for Ghanaians. Please, the floor is yours before I come out with some questions. Go ahead. I can't hear you. Maybe check your mic. I, I don't know whether you were not hearing me too. So
Hear
I
me
can't
now?
hear you. You are now okay, huh?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. I hope you
Oh,
heard me.
yes, I heard everything.
Okay, go. So go ahead.
Okay, so so once again, a very good evening to you all. And we thank God for this opportunity once again. Just as you rightly said, the topic itself is very intriguing, and I believe it is a very important topic given the context Ghana in which we are in and how things are going. The need for us to take the subject of corruption a bit more into details, and then not just the discussion of it, but much more to even look at ultimately the way forward. How do we, upon understanding the gravity of it, then say that, okay, look, this is how far we have come as a country, but this is where we can start from in order to change the narrative. So the topic rightly is the amnesty, corruption amnesty for Ghanaians. The idea of amnesty is more or less a clemency or a pardon that is given to a person or a group of persons. So naturally, the concept of amnesty must come from a person of higher authority, maybe an international figure, or within Ghana, maybe the president giving an amnesty, maybe to prisoners and then all. So why are we singing the chorus of amnesty? Though we may not be at positions like the president or let's say an international body. I've always been quoting one of my favorite quotes from Leonard Ravenhill, who was a revivalist. He says that if the pulpit is not bringing forth the necessary fire, let the pew gather fire and pour it onto the pulpit. In other words, it is expected that the clergy or the pulpit should be preaching and bringing forth fire so that the church will not die. But if the pulpit is not doing that, then let the people in the pew, in terms of the laity, let them gather and then pour fire onto the pulpit. So we understand that the natural sense of amnesty should come from higher power, higher authority, and then all that. But we understand also that in a democratic setting, and I think I've said it before, that in a democratic setting, there is a portfolio which is more potent and powerful even than the president, and that is the people. So in a democratic setting, if we are drawing the organogram, the depth of the authority lies with the people. So it means that if amnesty comes from a person or a group of persons of higher authority, then we are not right at all. If we, the people or the masses or the citizenry, charge that enough is enough, enough is enough, and that, I don't know if you can still hear me. Enough is enough, and that it is necessary.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go on.
Okay. Enough is enough, and that it is necessary for us to give ourselves this amnesty. I'm sure maybe it may run in maybe 2 or 3 series, possibly. So today, I would like to focus a bit more on the subject of corruption itself, what it is about, some practical examples, and then also how it comes about within the context that we are in. Maybe the next time, or possibly if we have time today still, we'll then be looking at the way forward. So now, given all these, where do we start from? And that is where the amnesty comes in. The amnesty is saying that we admit that we are all corrupt. Both our leaders and then ourselves, we are all having various shades of corruption, which we have engaged in or intend to engage in one way or the other. So you say so by declaring this amnesty for all ourselves, then we must now start on a clean sheet. And that clean sheet requires deliberate investment and deliberate accountability. First, at the personal level. Mostly, we look so much at the person at the top. But first and foremost, at the personal level. Personal investment and then personal accountability at all places and in all means possible and necessary. Then now, we move progressively. By the time we realize we will be done with this canker within our system called corruption. So it is a great topic, and I believe and I'm trusting God that God will be able to lead us to unpack it very well. So by way of introduction, this is what I will also say.
That's great. Thank you very much. You made a very powerful statement that we are all corrupt. We are all, if the system, if the foundation is wrong, the superstructure cannot, no matter how beautiful, how awesome the superstructure is, because it's dependent on the foundation, it will definitely affect it. And therefore, we are saying that, sometimes you go to a place, you don't want to incentivize anybody to get whatever you're looking for. But looking at the system that you are forced, the policeman stops you, you know you are late. If you want to wait, he will, the consequences. So you will find yourself to acquire something, go, I have to go through. So, and that is why I'm saying, and we are discussing about this amnesty thing. So the first question that maybe you can help us had to do with, have we been able to define what corruption is in terms of taking our culture, in terms of taking our environment, the kind of definitions around? Is it really what it is when we talk of corruption? I'm saying this because maybe as you give the definition, maybe I'll come back. So please, can you help us? The corruption we are talking about, is the definition correct? If the definition is correct, why are we not able to deal with it? I want you to help me with that. Thank you.
The definition, and then as we go along, we then look at how it comes about, or more or less the root causes, how it has been featured as a phenomenon within our society. Yeah, so, well, generally, what I'll say is that corruption will be the case or the situation when one accommodates a favor, either in cash or in kind, in order to shift his objective analysis and then judgment. When an individual or a group of persons make room to accommodate a favor, either in cash or in kind, with its resultant effect being that it is that favor now gleaned is shifting his objective analysis, which means that without that favor, perhaps he would have understood it this way, or he would have conducted it this way, but because of the favor, he is now compelled to shift his objective analysis or his judgment of a given situation. That is corruption. And the inducement then becomes bribery. So corruption and bribery, they are more or less like twin brothers. So the art of inducing then is bribery, and the art of accommodating that favor then is corruption. So inducing favor, either with cash or kind, to a person of influential or has an authority figure in order to shift his objective analysis and judgment of a given situation. So the induction is corruption. So by way of definition, this is what we can put to it.
Okay. The next has to do with, what are the root causes?
Yes. So just as we rightly said, it is everywhere. We see corruption every day, everywhere in our society. And how and where is it coming from? Maybe I'll take it from 3 angles or tributaries. One aspect has to do with our cultural, so maybe the cultural door or the cultural disposition or the cultural tributary. That is one. To some extent, there is also a religious underpinning or the religious tributaries. Then, number 3, there is the institutional contribution or the institutional tributary. So let's take the cultural. So when you see our culture, before even the colonial times, in our indigenous culture, there were some values that we were operating on as a people. Unfortunately, as the years go by, some or most of these values have been abused. A typical example is that Yonko, maybe you may have to help me. Is it Yonko ahimfie kwa anasensa something of that sort. There is a bear or a statement like that. That we do not approach maybe the palace empty-handed. There was a reason why that was given. Now, it is part of our indigenous culture. But because of its practical abuse over the years, now the mindset is that we do not approach an authority figure empty-handed. And it has become so much ingrained within the very fabrics of our society. So both the one approaching and then the one being approached, we are coming from the mindset that once you are approaching me, do not come empty-handed. So when I talk of the cultural, I'm obviously referring to our values, which is mostly what we preach. So our indigenous culture and its abuse over the years has left a vestige within the minds of the people that when you are approaching a person of any given authority, as you are approaching, don't go empty-handed. So just as God asked Moses, what do you have in your hands? He said, I have a rod or a staff. He said, okay, then I'm going to use it. So as you are approaching, if you have a cash, fine. If you don't have a cash, maybe as a lady, what do you have in your hands? What are you bringing onto the table? Well, I have my body to offer. It is still part of the favor. What do you have in your hands? Well, maybe I have a land to give. Whatever it is, this cultural disposition and many others has become a very solid foundation in our culture that wherever you are going, at least take something with you in order to pave a way. That is the cultural contribution. And this one, as I said, was even before the coming of the white, because it is part of our cultural matrix. And it has, over the years, only worsened and then has been chiefly abused up to the time we have now. That is one. Number two, there is the religious.
Maybe
all
before
right.
you go to the religious, I think, but ladies and gentlemen, please, if you have questions, you can send it to the chat for us to. We want to make it more interactive because we really want to solve a problem here. Let me give a bit on the cultural aspect, and I think I agree with you. The tradition has it now. You know, I'm a chief now, so I have been briefed a bit that
Exactly.
you know, chief or a king don't sit alone, and when you are coming to see a chief, he has to involve his officials, sub chiefs, and most often than not, these people have to leave their work and come. So the reason why when you are going there, because they are meeting on your request, so you have to go there so that at the end of the discussions, the chief will get something to be given to his subjects who were not allowed to go to farm because of you, in order for them to be able to go home and take care of their family. So that was the concept. So it has nothing to do with you going to try and bribe the chief or whatever. But because of you, they have, it's like now the civil servants, when they go for submitting this per diem kind of thing, is that's the, or when you take your case to court, the processing fee is that's the concept forebears put in place. But I agree with you that those who don't know the reasons behind might think that because I'm giving something to the chief, my intention is to induce the leader in order to find favor before that leader. I hope that I've made some input over there. And
yes,
and,
yes.
and
Very, very, very clear. Yeah, the fact that
mm-hmm.
yeah, so the intention was good and is very good, just as you've explained. Yes, so that's why I kept on using is abuse, because it has been abused over the years. And then
Sure.
now many people feel it is rather meant to induce, but
Oh.
this is rather the underpinning, the fact that these people you are calling on to sit on your case or whatever have left whatever they are doing. They did not go to farm, so you must also meet up for their needs. And I think it makes it is very relevant that way. So when its abuse comes in the sense that, oh, any person of authority, because that is why, so now it has been shifted, this abuse has been shifted into the institutions, where now when you are going to the passport or whatever place it is, where you are being paid to render this kind of service,
Sure.
but still this abuse is in their mind so much that you will have to sort me out in order for me to attend to it. So that is the cultural root of the corruption. That is the years to the point we are now, unfortunately.
Great. Great. Move on.
Okay. All right. So the second point that I was talking about is the religious. There is also, unfortunately, a seeming religious contribution to this whole corruption framework. The reason is because when you are raising, I've always said that every theology comes with a psychology. Now, corruption is also connected to a disposition of greed. When an individual is greedy, there is a higher likelihood that the person will steer ways to be corrupt, because he wants to meet up the demands of his greed.
All right, Joseph, before
Okay.
you continue, I've seen Pastor Clement raising the hand. I don't know whether he has question
Okay.
on the, so maybe we can allow him. Okay, let me do so.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Yeah. On the part of the example that you gave about the chief um, family heads and other people coming together to listen to a case, I think that that example, if we stretch it too much, will affect the fiber of what we want to deal with, because the chiefs are not paid. So yes, somebody will also say that, okay, I'm a pastor, so if you come and meet my executive friend or the marriage committee, and they are father and they are not paid. So I think that we have to see how we can, in a way, decouple this. So for example, when you go to the ministry, you see people seated wanting to see the minister or the chief director, and this case goes on. And it's a practice that is being carried from the home. As my brother Joshua said, that we don't go to the opening with empty handed. And I think that if we are not careful, last time I was saying somewhere that for corruption in Africa, when we say corruption, it's very difficult to define what Africans think about corruption, because the fact that the person is not forcing you to give the money and you are also giving it willingly, though you have some motives in your mind. So this case of corruption in Africa is becoming very, very, it goes on. We all talk about it, but how do we stop? It has become part of us. So I think that we have to really look at how these linkages are being done, because the person pays the money and the money goes back to the village to do something or to just remit from friends and family. So it's like a connected something. You see these huge buildings in town built by corrupt money. People are occupying them and they are enjoying them. So when you talk about corruption, the fact that the person is using the money to benefit other people, they think that is what. Thank you.
Thank you. Joshua, you can continue.
Okay. All right. So I think I was on the second point, which is the place of
Religion.
the religious contribution. Yes. So I was saying that greed is also a predisposing factor to corruption, because when the person is greedy, it means that the person will be driving all means possible and all means necessary, whether the demands of his greed. And to some extent, sometimes the kind of theology that we have rather incites us, or yes, it incites or sparks up the greedy disposition of people. For instance, when there is what it means by the blessings of God. Now, generally, we feel that what it means by God has blessed an individual has to be more of material gains. How much cars do you have? Or how many cars do you have? How many buildings do you have? How many companies are you running? Psychologically, for many, especially, religious people and Christians, we feel, especially within the African context, we feel that the definition of God has blessed you has to do with essentially more external and material things. So if I'm serving God faithfully, that is from my end, and then I'm not having these material things, I begin to feel that some way, somehow, either I am not in the good books of God, or some way, somehow, perhaps God has failed me. So now what happens is that I am under a religious pressure or a hysterical pressure in order to meet up. I must show that my God is alive. And to show that my God is alive means that I must have these things and have it more abundantly. So now I'll be thinking of how do I maximize the opportunity that I have at this workplace in order to meet up this religious definition of blessings being overemphasized on material gains. Because if I look within my mates or the people, my clique in church, when I see how they are faring, and then I see how I am trying to be faithful, but I am not really, I'm not a seat top. I didn't quit. So now, if I get any single opportunity, I am going to see how I can maximize it. And the maximizing here is that I am going to accommodate all corrupt practices in order to do that. So there are two dimensions under the religious. One is the overemphasis of the blessings of God defined from the material perspective. It naturally places a hysterical pressure on the believer to feel that the absence or the inadequacy of these material things surrounding me is that God has not really blessed me, or I am not so much in the good books of God. So I must stretch myself against all odds, if that means being corrupt, in order to do it. That is one side. The other side, also still under the religious, is that unfortunately, the church's disposition towards people, even known figures, who are deeply entrenched in corruption, also sends a signal that it looks like the church is not really having much problem when it comes to corruption. What do I mean? For instance, if we are in church, the focus to some extent becomes how much money I am contributing to the church through my tithes, through my prophetic seeds, etc., etc. There is nothing wrong to support the work of God. But now, when the practice becomes that the more you are able to give, the easier you rise through certain ranks that is within the church. It sends a signal. When the practice becomes that the emphasis is so much on how much you can give, how am I making the money? So, for instance, a young guy comes to the church, and then given our society, we have certain expectations because of how things run. Young guy, maybe 20 years, almost every Sunday coming to church or pulling up with different cars, splashing money here and there. Yes, we thank God that God has blessed you and then we are supporting us. But to some extent, we should be also a bit concerned. The pastor perhaps could call this guy. What businesses are you into? It is good that you are supporting the church and then all that. The point is that it should not just be about how much somebody or persons are supporting the church, regardless of the amount of money, regardless of the source of income, and then how they are going about it. Because when people see it this way, the special treatment being given to them, regardless of the sources, then it is a signal to other people that, oh, I'm sorry, they hear say when you see cano. And inti ede maminko shushebi. Any means possible and necessary, let me do it, because there is no critique concerning how I even arrived at that. When our leaders or some of our politicians come and then come over, what do we tell them? You see, all these things leave a vestige in the minds of the people. So, for instance, if there is a known figure or known figures that even there are corruption scandals that have been levied against them, but when they visit the church or they visit the leadership, we seem to keep mute over all those things and we still accommodate because they splash some money. What it leaves in the minds, especially of the young and emerging generation, is that the church is not so much interested in how these men made their monies. Rather, they are interested in how much they are leaving to the church in order to run its business. So the theological aspect in terms of the doctrine that the blessings of God is essentially the material gains. And then our practice where we give so much emphasis on people who give, regardless of the source of income, we accommodate people even with known corruption scandals without making effort to even talk to them on some of these things. It leaves a mindset that even to some extent, the church is even accommodating the practice of corruption. So the young and emerging generation continues with that. That is number 2. Number 3.
Maybe before you go to the number 3, you've made a very serious point as to the role of the church and the church not able to go beyond the giving of individual, even when we know that the larger society is not speaking well of that individual, and the church is just mute because the person is paying the biggest of the tithe or the offering or the support. In such a situation, what should the church do? I want you to, because this is very critical. Somebody has even sent something at the chat, and let me read it. Said, I have come to see that hunger and greed are a very potent precursor for bribery and corruption. But as far as it is systematic and has infiltrated almost all walks of our society, what are tangible steps to keep myself from partaking in the corruption? Should I continue to be angry, especially when you need to send something to them just for people to do their job that they are already being paid to do? Maybe you can respond to that together with
Yes,
my initial comment. Okay.
okay, I think, yes, possibly we will come to the way forward,
Okay.
so that we can move it systematically, so that
Okay.
we have this time for the root causes. But just as you
Okay.
were talking about in terms of the church, in that given situation, how do we go about it? Yes, the concerns being raised about the person should be taken into consideration, and then the person invited or engaged on that subject. So it shouldn't just be swept under the carpet because of maybe how much the person may be supporting the church. So the person should be called or invited, and then scrutiny should be made that, oh, these are the reportage that we've had concerning maybe the business deals or transactions you are engaged in. What is your side of the story? How can we also be of help, etc., etc. So the treatment, the special treatment, the special treatment of, should I say, rich people in church is, as I said, a contributing factor. Even in normal, in terms of fundraising, there are many times that what we see is that if we quote a higher amount, those who come for the higher, or those who are able to come for the higher amount, they are given even special prayers, and special anointing oil will be poured on them. Some way, somehow, it looks like the more we are reducing the amount, the more the prayer intensity of the prophet or the pastor also reduces. So by the time it gets to some of us, I mean, you don't even get the opportunity to greet the hands of the pastor. It's just like, come on, come on. It all sells and sends a signal. So the idea is people should be concerned, or the leadership should be concerned about the sources of income of all of us. And that is where true discipleship also comes in. But I'll push all of them, especially towards the way forward. We will be delving into the way forward when it comes to the church, when it comes to the home, when it comes to the media, when it comes to the school. We will be looking at in more detailed forms how, because this corruption canker ought to be really taken off. Yeah. So we'll come there with its details as well. But for now, this is what I'll say on that note.
I think that's good. So you've given us two root causes. One is the cultural. The second one has to do the religious, and you were moving on to the third one. Go ahead.
So the third one is the institutional. The institutional tributary, or the institutional contribution to this whole thing. Now, it's just like one person was saying, the whole fabric of our nation, unfortunately, is built on the foundations of corruption. Everywhere you go, so the institutions, that is the various institutions that we have. We said the other time that we admitted that we have very seriously weak and defunct institutions. We have an appearance as though we are healthy, but within we are so weak and beggarly. So the institutional defect, where there is no serious sense of accountability at the various levels of institutions. There is no serious sense of accountability. So because of that, when somebody is being corrupt, there is no system within the institution. Because of the weakness of the institution, we are unable to check out on these things. So it keeps on getting worse and worse and worse. And then now it is like the unwritten code that has been fully accepted at the institutional level is rather the corruption. So much so that now you that you want to stand for the right thing, you rather become the odd one out.
The
So
victim.
yes, you become the victim because everywhere is choked with corruption. And it is also connected with our mindset. The fact that enye wo na oba be Ghana ye, edwuma no enyo papa dia, enyo mame dia. Enu nti no, get as much as you can. So the institutional defect is also having various underpinnings. And some of those underpinnings is that one, there is the lack or there is no sense of nationalism or patriotism. So because of that, we don't see our contribution in our services and products at the institutions as a way of contributing our quota to national development. We rather see it from what can I get from the institution to take home in order to survive on and then to support my friends and family. So that is the difference between the mindset, which I'll be coming on as number 4, the mindset and then intelligence. When you have the same information that come your way, when you have different worldview or mindset, it is going to interpret it also differently. So the workplace, whereas one person is seeing it as a contributing platform to national development, another person is also seeing it as a platform to amass wealth in order to take home to support my friends and cronies. So the institutions are so weak that it cannot bite. It cannot bite through accountability. And we cannot build a nation this way. We cannot build a nation where when you are corrupt and then when you get your way through, we cannot track and then have you face the demands of the law. We cannot run a nation that way. And it is at the various levels, everywhere. Just like one document I chanced on with one Nigerian script writer, he was saying that he was giving the dichotomy between the ruling wicked and then the waiting wicked. So brilliant an exposition that he wrote, that in Nigeria and by extension is the same thing in Ghana and then almost all through Africa, that there seem to be two categories of people when it comes to matters of corruption. That is the ruling wicked or the ruling corrupt, and then the waiting corrupt or the waiting wicked. That is to say that those who are crying against the leadership or the politicians, it is not so much, in fact, most of them, we cannot say all of them, but most of them, it is not so much because they have a genuine love for the common good of the people of our nation. It is because they are a bit distant from the very access to the larger resources, the benefit, where the real deal is going on. So those people are only waiting to get the opportunity to do worse than those who are doing now. So the ruling wicked or the ruling corrupt, they are there. They are having the proximity to the larger resources or the national cake, and they are chopping it left, right, center. Now, we are a bit distant from the larger resources. We are the waiting wicked. We are not so much different from our leaders. most of us are not so much different from our leaders. We have only not gotten the opportunity they are having and the access they are having. No wonder for 67 years down the line, as a nation, we have not advanced as much as we would have wanted. The reason is because we have only been changing. I mean, we have been taken from the waiting wicked and then we push them there. So 20 years ago, the leaders now, they were castigating the then leaders that they are corrupt. They are not ruling the country well. Now they come, or they are in power now, and to some extent they are doing worse. It tells you that the youth today, that we are also chanting against our leaders today, that, oh, they are corrupt, they are stealing the money, and then all that. It is most likely, if nothing happens to our mindset, it is most likely that when we get the opportunity, we will do worse. And that is why mostly when I hear the mantra, give power to the youth, give power to the youth, normally I say that, good, but let us pause. What kind of youth are you referring to? If it is this,
Which kind of youth?
oh,
Which kind of youth?
I tell you.
Right.
So I normally say that, oh, there's nothing wrong. Of course, give power to the youth, but train, give power to the youth. You know, youth men are what kind of youth are you referring to? Is it the kind of youth I know? If it is them, then please tell our leaders to
And to
increase
continue.
by 10, and we will be safer with that than this kind of youth. Because the kind of work we do, we are in bed with this kind of youth. And I can tell you that we are worse than even the ruling decay or the ruling wicked. The only
In
thing that,
fact,
yes,
in fact, the youth have this mindset that our leaders are not smart enough.
exactly.
They think they are not smart enough. That's why they do things that people become aware of their bodies. They are not smart enough.
So it means that,
Continue.
yeah, so to them, they believe that and then in fact, we must admit that the youth, we are relatively more sophisticated compared to the older generation. Even with technology, AI, and then all that, things are top notch. So just as you're saying, we feel to some extent they are not smart enough. We can organize ourselves and then do things and seal our backs that you cannot even track it. So without a reorientation of our mindset, then the young and emerging generation that I see, the conclusion is that we are even worse off than the prevailing wicked. So those are the two elements. So it means that both the ruling wicked and the waiting wicked becomes the average everyday citizen. And we are all corrupt. Where are we coming from? It is the institutions. We are all in various institutions. So you go to the, let's say, the basic school during BC, and then you will find headmasters that they will be organizing themselves. They will give announcement to the children, and then they will send these children to their parents that they are paying X amount toward the BEC. And then they take it, and then they'll give it to the coordinators or so, and then they'll even give some to the police people, the invigilators, so that they can have free access. And this is what is going on en masse. And we are not doing what we call systemic thinking. Maybe I'll come to that as the fourth point, as the mindset. So to wrap up on point 3, that is the institutional. We have built our institutions in such a way that it does not bite through accountability. We have the form, but that form is without substance. We have the form, but the form is without substance. So naturally, there are overseers, there are auditors whose duty is to audit and then to pick up the holes in the narrative so that they can be placed on the line. By the time these auditors come, We have already sorted them. So they come and then they do their work religiously. Sometimes they don't even take a look at it at all. So in 2021, Auditor General's report that came in 2022 in reference to the fiscal year of 2021, they realized that the money that was unaccounted for, that means that we don't understand where it passed, was 12.5 billion just in a year for a nation crying of economic issues or crunch. We could just spare 12.5 billion as monies that has gone unaccounted for from the Auditor General's report. Because there was no punitive measures that was meted out. The following year, 2022, it ballooned from 12.5 to 17.5 billion from the Auditor General's report. Why? Because after all, there was no punitive measure that was given. So it means, in fact, one of the departments that I sometimes both laugh and cry at the same time about it is the Auditor General's report. After tediously working all these things out, very little commitment is given, because per our constitutional demands and structure, after the Auditor General's report, it is the duty of the state attorney or the attorney general to pick them up, the lapses. Then they write to those who are concerned and then give them an ultimatum within 21 days to provide the necessary backings for those unaccounted for money. And if it is not, they process them to court. But you know how we do our things, extremely partisan. So the report will come, and then it just, the media will just pick it up. They'll tease it up one or two ways. And then another news comes, it goes. Another year, the report comes, and this is what we have given the report every year, and we have not taken so much punitive measures. During PPA sittings, public procurement, and then you could see that some of these Q&A questions that are being given to these ministers or people, the methods that they use in the procurement, whether sole sourcing, whether whatever it went, you could see a clear breach of the act. The posture, the sitting posture of the person alone tells you that we know talking about ballooning, I mean, about millions of Ghana cedis or dollars. Now, so Ogusu Kenin Nano or Sere, because Odimsa Adewe enko bebia. So the institutional defect is so strong, and all these have contributed for an easy pass when it comes to the place of corruption.
If you are joining us, we are discussing the topic corruption amnesty for Ghanaians, and what we're trying to do this evening is to look at the root cause of corruption. Speaker has taken us through three of them. The first has to do with the cultural, the religious, and the third has to do with the weak institutions or the institutional structures that are so weak that we are not able to deal with corruption. He has another point. So Joshua, you go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So the last 2 points to wrap up the sources. I mean, how the root cause. So the last but one, or number 4, is that of the, should I say, the trajectory of the society, or the societal trajectory. What I mean by the societal trajectory is that, and this is a very serious point. You see, in a given society, what happens is that when the people are growing, it's just like Abraham Maslow's theory, where you move from basic needs through to the point of self-actualization. So with the younger generation, when they are growing, they look up to the older generation. So they normally look at the things that as a nation or as a society we hold dear. And that becomes what the younger generation will chase after, because they want to reach a point of self-actualization. So every society has its defined and undefined terms of actualization. So the younger generation, unconsciously and sometimes consciously, they pick it up that for this society, this is what it means by you are successful. This is what it means by you have arrived. This is what it means by you are a great person. Okay, so if this is the template of greatness in our society, if this is the template of success in our society, then what can I do in order to get there? That is the societal trajectory, which is very, very important. So now let's take our nation or our society, Ghana. What are the definitions of a successful person? What are the parameters of assessing a great person? Is it that of character and integrity? Well, not that which I know of. If you build your life strongly on character and integrity, you are most likely to be the odd one out within our society. It means as a society and given our trajectory, we do not praise and lay so much emphasis on internalizing character and integrity. That is why the very people who are corrupt, when they come back to us, in fact, all of us are corrupt, and the very people who are having their corruption in leaps and bounds, when they come back to us, we still regard them as they are successful because they have what it takes. So we do not define our successful men based on character. We do not define our successful women based on integrity. What are our parameters? One, money, regardless of how you had it. And this is a very serious matter. And a dangerous ama inchirimano, because when they are growing, they are going to consciously, unconsciously pick up the parameters of success, and that is what they will drive themselves towards. So as a society, what it means by a successful man is that you are having the money. How you made it is not so much of our concern. Whether it was through foul means, say you are a mover and a shaker. You have the money. You have what it takes to drive things around. And that is enough for us. Oninam manchwa hanoma yemfane nyahwe. Wakopesa kawa. Or any wakobu internet ni bia faso. Now wenye sika. Now he starts driving in a 4-wheel drive. No. Kweku. Braha. Now immediately, boss, chairman, senior man, honorable. That is a dangerous thing. That is extracurricular activities. Get the end say, Charlie, chairman, El Chairmano. And then now we then gather around this person. Now you took chairman. So now what happens is the person coming. So ebia ye na friends are follow. We are saying that follow the one who knows rule. So I'll go and then say that, Charlie, now unya anything. No we be key na mame. That means so makoye. And then now my name changed from Kwame to El Chairman. Because I want to reach a point of El Chairman. That is self-actualization. But in our society, we don't reach El Chairman through hard work, integrity, Oh, and the obeche. And then you become El Chairman. And then you'll be able to drive things, you'll be able to turn things around. This is a very one of the dangerous things that we have built for ourselves as a nation. So it makes people who want to build their businesses, people want to build their ministries, people want to build their destinies and then their organizations on the foundations of character, integrity, values, hard work. It makes it very difficult because you cut connects. And in fact, you see, because we have that mindset, and all that. Let me even bring it within the civil service or civil servants. That is where another huge element of corruption goes on there. But mostly we mask it with the idea that, oh, so there are people. There is one of our big hospitals in this very nation. One of their heads, or shall I say their management team, I am close to him. He's one professor. I want to refrain from details. And then he was telling me that he was quoting the amount of money they make every day through revenue. And then he was telling me that as big as this hospital is, which has all these challenges, we can literally build this hospital from the scratch every year. We can build one of it every year. He is privy to the details and was telling me, say, Sikana Bano, said the painful no ACA Disicano, their Ubekum, their beds, a war no and so, and your honor, and the amount of money is unimaginable just from that single hospital, a teaching hospital, of course. And that is very pathetic. But only a crow, you know, there was, oh, now so a medical doctor. Now so a medical superintendent. And so a medical superintendent, now so over 10 cars. Now so we see a dime bibria, say a new husa. I am telling you that there are many people in our nation that if you are to audit their wealth relative to what they receive or what their businesses genuinely give them, they are nowhere near the kind of properties and then wealth that they have procured for themselves. But we don't see or talk about it because we just assume that because he's a medical doctor, he can have all the money. Because he's a pharmacist, and Shada Husa, we see a brosanya twice so bad 20. Shocked. Also, you do DVL. It is a way who or Bosomi Sona say one fan any and share the salary and Husa. Why? Because the real deal is going on beneath. All these are within the societal trajectory. If we shift, there is going to be a shift. There was a time that Bill Gates was saying that what his heartbeat is that he will be able to get one of these Nobel awards on humanitarian elements. Why? He is not talking so much on money. Because the society, yes, we respect people with money, but it is so much on character and integrity. How were you able to build? That is why there is an intelligentsia, more or less, and financial eye on everybody within that community. So you will have to explain how you arrived at this amount of money. So anytime I say concerning your wealth, we will call you and find only how big a name you are. Whoever you are, we will call you and then find out that How were you able to make this and when did you start this business? Show us your tax revenues, your tax returns, this. The idea is that it is not so much or only about how much you are bringing into the economy. It is so much of also what or how you were able to do it. And then finally, it is about the mindset. That is number 5, the mindset. Our mindset is something that is the chief foundational stone. Our interpretation, we do not do what we call systemic thinking. Systemic thinking is thinking more or less like in carbon change, that if I do this, what will be the consequence? That is thinking about the consequence or the ramifications of your actions and how far it will go to affect, certain people or other people and in our nation. The mindset we have is instant gratification. And I'm thinking of how much I can accrue from the opportunity I'm having now for myself and cronies. Each one for himself, God for us all. That is our mantra. So let us survive for ourselves. So these are the 5 foundational pillars when it comes to the practice of corruption in our nation and society.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joshua Oppong Sarfo. If you are joining us, we are discussing corruption, amnesty for Ghanaians, and you know very well that we will not be able to exhaust this discussion. Today has been the introductory, and he has taken us through 5 root causes of corruption in our country. Mention about our culture, the religious institutions, mindset, and the fourth one was the societal, the trajectory, how we value the value system, or what makes, how we see somebody who is rich, what are the criteria that we as a nation, we can say that this person is blessed of God. What are the signs? He has mentioned that for us, money has become the major criterion for us. So it doesn't matter how the person got the money. If the person is nobody in the society and all of a sudden he is making money, the kind of respect he gets in the society is so amazing. Thank you very much. We have had some points from our chat box, and I want to read for members here so that we can pick. Many people have followed, and I think it's good for us. Somebody was asking whether if we increase the salaries of civil servants, wouldn't that stop corruption? And somebody gave a typical example of that. He said that before the police, where he used to work, he was giving some support to some police people. He thought that they were not, their salary wasn't enough. Up until when they got their single spy, he thought, okay, now these people might be okay. He stopped. And your guess is mine. The things have even become worse off. So the issue of increasing salary is not, it could be one of the ways to, but I think its impact will be minimal. Another person is saying that in all these engagement and all the readings, I tend to pin the whole issue to the heart of man. We are fallen beings, and inherently corruption and sick at heart. If we don't focus our attention on the healing of the heart as we strengthen the systems and policies, this might be a lost cause. You are right. With the little understanding I am getting, if the church can really focus on the gospel, focus on the gospel and what it really means, and get people to change from the heart, we will have a long way to go. For example, let's take all of us on this call. We do, it is our change of heart by Jesus that refrains us and pushes us to be ethical. So approaching it from system thinking lenses, Doug is saying, I think we might be having a headway. So strong emphasis on the gospel, not just general preaching.
Yeah.
All right, I think this one is coming from a pastor who is sharing his thought. We will be coming back maybe in 2 weeks, to continue the discussion. Today was just for the introductory, and we have just about 2 minutes to close the session. I want once again to thank, unfortunately, we won't give opportunity for people to call in because the time is, but in 2 weeks' time, we're going to continue. Today, we've looked at the root cause, and then we try to give a definition of corruption. Doc, can you repeat the definition of corruption that you made in, so that we end with that one?
Okay. Yeah. So I was saying that corruption is the situation or the act where an individual accommodates a favor, either in cash or in kind, in order to shift his objective analysis of the situation or his his natural objective analysis of the situation. So the inducement is the bribery, and then the accommodation of it is corruption. So in cash or in kind, to make you shift your objective analysis of or what you would have done naturally without it, then it's corruption.
Thank you very much. So we use that one. This statement sums up what we try to discuss today. We gave a definition of corruption, and then based on that definition, we will have come out of 5 root causes of corruption. Come this in 2 weeks' time, we're going to look at the other issue. We have made a very important statement that all of us are corrupt. And that is why we are calling for amnesty. There should be a clean sheet for us. We are going through some of these to help us to rethink and re-strategize in order to have a better nation. Once again, on behalf of Kingdom Economic Forum and New African Concept, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We value your time. We also want to announce to all the businessmen and women and professionals, we have through Kingdom Economic Forum and New African Concept, we organize prayer meeting online, just 1 hour on Sundays. This is a specific, it is a novel prayer. It's not just praying. It's a prayer when we interject it with business principle. So every Sunday, 9 to 10 p.m., you join us on Zoom. Join us. Who knows? As we go through that, we are trying to raise kingdom millionaires and billionaires through that prayer line. So we want to encourage those who can be part of us. On this note, we want to thank you once again. We want to thank the administrators, the Cherry and Johnny and his team. We appreciate your effort. God bless you all. So we meet again. Dog, once again, God bless you and thank you. Bye-bye. Bless you. Bye.